Verse 5 of the 8 verses of Thought Transformation says, "When others, out of jealousy, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them." So, wanting to accept defeat and give victory away, this is pretty unheard of in the world. So this is probably one of the most difficult of the 8 verses to put into practice. But it's good to look at that, to examine our mind and try to understand why this is so important to us. Bring to mind situations in our life where we may have been victorious or we may have been the loser, and check our feelings, our reactions to that, and explore them and understand what's going on in our mind. Why does our mind react that way? And if we do that, we'll probably discover a whole slew of afflictive states of mind. Attachment, of course, attachment to being victorious, being the winner. Attachment to reputation. So that's one of the 8 worldly concerns, this pair of being attached to reputation, what other people think of us, and having aversion to no reputation or bad reputation. And so attachment and aversion, pride, arrogance, and probably self-importance, thinking I am more important than others. I want to be in a situation where there is a winner and a loser. I want to be the winner and not the loser. Let somebody else lose. And of course, at the base of all of these afflictions is our ego, a strong sense of a real, solid, truly existing I, me, and usually never questioning that, but just believing in it. So that belief in a sense of self or I, which in fact doesn't really exist the way we perceive it, that's where all of our afflictions come from. And so, when we explore our mind and we discover these various afflictions, then this is a helpful thing. Because if we want to follow the spiritual path, especially the Bodhisattva's path that aims for enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings, afflictions are the enemy number 1, the things that we need to recognize and reduce and eventually eliminate completely, and cultivate in their place positive qualities, the opposite states of mind, like love and compassion and altruism and so on. And so if we're really serious about that, then we need to recognize the afflictions and then work on them. But I think even without being a spiritual practitioner, it's possible that people may feel this way. I once talked with a woman who is a mother, and she had a boy, 10-year-old boy, who was studying karate. He was going for karate lessons, and they would have competitions with each other. And when her son won a competition, instead of being happy, he was sad, because he realized that the child who lost was unhappy. And so he was more concerned about the other child being unhappy about losing than he was about, his own excitement about winning. So I thought that was pretty extraordinary. Maybe he had strong imprints from past lives in altruism and compassion and so on. So even ordinary people without meeting the Buddha's teachings may have this kind of awareness. But it's probably rare. I mean, there's so much competition in the world. I think it's universal. Not just among human beings, but also animals. You see animals fighting with each other to see who's on top, who gets to be the leader of the pack, and so on. So one thing that also plays in here is concern about what other people think of us. And they actually say of the worldly concerns, like the 8 worldly concerns, that's the hardest one to deal with. It's easier to give up attachment to food and comfort. But when it comes to what other people think of us, wanting people to like us and think well of us, not wanting people to think badly of us, that's very, very hard to overcome. So that's good to look at. Like, why are we so concerned about that? And one thing some years ago when I was working on this, what I thought about was, do people really know me? Yeah, I mean, how much do people really know me and are in a position to be able to accurately assess me? You know, like if someone says, oh, you're wonderful, you're this, you're that, you know, all these compliments, do they really know what they're talking about? Yeah, most people, I mean, we don't really know each other that well. We observe each other behaving and talking and so on. So we may get some sense of what's going on with another person, but we can't look, unless we have clairvoyance, we can't really see what's going on in the other person's mind. And so we don't really know what's going on with them, whether they have good qualities or not so good qualities. And it's only like our teachers, our spiritual teachers that we communicate with and are very open and honest with, and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, in relation to them, we can get an accurate assessment of where we're at. But in relation to ordinary people, if they think we're good or they think we're bad, yeah, it's not so reliable. So that's something to ask yourself, yeah. If somebody says you're great, you're wonderful, is that really true? Yeah. Or if they think you're horrible, you're lousy, and all these other kind of insults, is that really true? So it's much better, instead of relying on what other people say about us or think about us, it's much better to look honestly at ourselves, at our motivations, and why we do the things we do, our good qualities and our not so good qualities. So that was helpful for me to not, take so much stock in what other people say and other people think. But in this verse, it's talking about people slandering us, mentions that. And that's kind of a tricky one because, yeah, if people are saying things about you, telling stories about you that aren't true, should you just keep quiet and let that person say what they want? So the Dalai Lama, in one of his commentaries to this this text, commented on that, and he said that if you're obsessed with your own welfare alone, that's all you think about, all you care about, then it's better to accept defeat, let the other person win. But if others' welfare is at stake, then you should work hard and fight for their rights. So I was trying to think of a situation where that might be the case. And yeah, if you were a Dharma teacher or you had a position of responsibility in a Dharma center or a monastery, and if somebody is spreading misinformation about you, false accusations, and that might damage people's faith in you and also in the Dharma, the 3 jewels. And so it could be harmful for them. It could be harmful for a lot of people. In that situation, it might be best to make some kind of statement about what's true, that you didn't do those things that you're being accused of. But if you ever do that, follow that line, then it's ideal not to do it with anger, aversion, or wanting to get back at this person, the feeling of revenge, but just, thinking about what will be most beneficial for the largest number of people and acting from that point of view. There's actually a story about Geshe Langri Tangpa, who was in a situation like this. He's the author of this text. And the story is that he was a a monk and a teacher, and at one point he was giving a teaching in front of a large assembly. And a woman walked in carrying a baby in her arms. She walked right up to him, plunked the baby in his lap, and said, "This is yours." and some of the people in the audience didn't, lost their faith, and they got up and walked out, but others, remained. And Geshe Langri Tangpa was like unfazed. He didn't show any reaction. He just carried on teaching. Kind of, accepted the baby and held it in his lap while he was teaching. And then at the end of the teaching, the woman walked up to him and apologized for what she did and explained that the baby had been, recently born, and she consulted an astrologer, which is common in Tibet. And the astrologer said, "Oh, doesn't look good. The baby might not survive, but there's something you could do to ensure that it will survive. If you take it to a high spiritual master and say that it's, that person's child, the baby will survive." And so that was why she did it. So there was no malevolence, no nastiness, no negative intention behind. She was just trying to save her baby's life. And maybe Geshe Langri Tangpa knew that. Maybe he had clairvoyance and so on. But anyway, I found that story quite impressive, that he was so unconcerned about his reputation and what people might think of him. And there's a similar story in the Zen tradition as well. So that was quite striking to me. So I think in short, it's good if we ever do find ourselves in a situation like this and very concerned about our reputation, very concerned about being the winner, being victorious, not wanting to be the loser. It's really good to look at our mind and try to recognize what's lying behind that, recognize afflictions, and then apply antidotes to them. But still, ideally, we should try to behave in our, in our everyday behavior. We should try to behave in ways that don't attract, criticism and would cause people to lose faith in us. So there's a lot more that one could take out of this verse, but these are just a few thoughts that I have. Thank you.